I'm Gregor Thomson, I'm a philosopher and a writer, and I know what the meaning of life is. Welcome to The Struggle. This episode is brought to you by The Struggle newsletter. This is a weekly email newsletter in which I send out for free every Sunday a short article concerning the art of embracing struggle. If you feel restricted in life, if something is holding you back, perhaps it's time to struggle your way towards freedom. If you're trying to be productive, you're trying to be healthy and to achieve your dreams, perhaps you're chasing the wrong thing. A lot of us believe that we should be aiming for happiness, but this is an unwise pursuit, as happiness comes and goes without any control from us. However, there is a way to be more fulfilled with life, and that is to embrace struggle, to exercise, to eat healthily, to have uncomfortable conversations, to take career risks, to discover who you are, and to be autonomous. That's the way to break free from whatever it is that's restricting you. And that's why I created a newsletter. Along with the article, I also provide tips, strategies, and recommendations such as movies, music, podcasts, and recipes to help along the way. To sign up for free, go to gregorthomson.com. The link will be in the show notes. Confirm your subscription and make sure you check your spam folder for your welcome newsletter and add me to your contacts to continue to receive it in your inbox every week for free. And that's it. You're on your way to struggling more and being more productive, healthy, and motivated. Now, let's get on with the struggle. This is episode 43 of The Struggle with me, Gregor Thomson. And this week I'm continuing on the theme of sacrificing modernity and embracing pain. Now, the majority of us, thankfully, have the luxury of hot showers and warm houses. However, it's been proven that sacrificing this form of modernity is beneficial. The somewhat trendy behaviour at the moment is cold exposure or cold immersion therapy. And whilst it is trendy, it does have scientific merit for its benefits. This is another way in which travelling back to the time of our hunter-gatherer ancestors is a wise route. Our ancestors lacked warm showers and warm houses, but what if that was a benefit rather than a hindrance? What if our ability to withstand cold temperatures is a feature and not a bug? And what if, by neglecting the cold, we are failing to reap the benefits of this feature? Cold immersion has been proven to hold many benefits, including the speeding up of metabolism, inflammation reduction, muscle recovery, improved sleep quality, and improved immune response. As well as this, it seems that cold water immersion has profound effects psychologically. An experiment was carried out at Charles University in Prague, in which 10 male volunteers were submerged in cold water with their heads out for 1 hour. The results from blood samples portrayed that dopamine levels in their blood had increased 250%, and plasma noradrenaline concentrations had increased 530%. The results from blood samples portrayed that dopamine concentration levels in their blood had increased 250%, and plasma noradrenaline concentration levels had increased 530%. Now, here's a little bit more about dopamine. As listeners of The Struggle will know, dopamine is the manner in which scientists measure the addictive potential of any experience. The more dopamine released, the more addictive potential the behaviour or drug has. Now, it's been shown that research participants who experienced feelings of pleasure when dopamine was turned on went to great lengths to trigger the activation of the brain cells producing dopamine. Whilst many call dopamine the pleasure molecule, it's actually more aptly described as the anticipation and surprise molecule. What researchers have found is that continually providing pleasure to participants or animals does not consistently increase dopamine. In fact, after a while, the dopamine activity in the brain shuts down. So instead of dopamine being released in response to a pleasurable stimuli, it actually increases in response to the anticipation of a pleasurable stimuli or to the surprise and novelty of a pleasurable stimuli. When we are motivated to carry out an activity, we are searching for our next dopamine hit. We feel motivated to be productive when we experience dopamine release in response to a healthy stimuli or in response to healthy behaviours such as exercise or creative pursuits. However, unhealthy motivation comes in the form of yearning for an extremely pleasurable experience without much effort required, such as social media, pornography, fast food, smoking, and drugs like cocaine and heroin. If we were to look back at our hunter-gatherer ancestors who had the exact same brains that we have now, but no access to pornography, social media, or junk food, they would receive dopamine from hunting down a food source, building shelter, or finding a water source, all of which requires work, effort, motivation, and anticipation. However, put these same brains into our modern world of comfort and pleasure, and we eliminate the work required, and increase the highly dopaminergic stimuli, and therefore reduce our motivation to be productive or to make any effort at all. We must therefore program our brains to release dopamine in response to productive and healthy stimuli, and become more aware of the activities and experiences that greatly increase dopamine without any work required. Now, if we go back to the cold immersion experiment, perhaps what's more interesting than the increase of dopamine levels was the course the dopamine took. It gradually and steadily rose over the course of the cold immersion, and here's the crucial part. It remained elevated for an hour afterwards. Their norepinephrine rose sharply during the first half hour, remained high for another 30 minutes, then dropped by a third afterwards. However, it stayed elevated considerably above baseline into the second hour following the cold immersion. Now, this explains why many people who partake in cold showers and ice baths describe the experience as great for hours after the struggle of the cold water itself. Now, to put these results in perspective, first it would be useful to see how much other drugs and behaviours increase dopamine levels. Quote, "For a rat in a box, chocolate increases the basal output of dopamine in the brain by 55%. Sex by 100%, nicotine by 150%, and cocaine by 225%. Amphetamine, the active ingredient in street drugs like speed, ice, shabu, as well as in medications like Adderall that are used to treat attention deficit disorder, increase the release of dopamine by 1000%. Whilst these percentage increases are significant, it's worth noting that these levels quickly drop after the drug or behaviour has been carried out, hence why many people keep going back for more, leading to addiction. During the run-up towards eating a piece of chocolate, our brains release dopamine in anticipation, and as a form of motivation to eat the sugary food. The chocolate itself then increases dopamine by around 55%, but then what happens afterwards is crucial to comprehend for our purposes. The dopamine then drops below normal baseline towards pain. This is our hunter-gatherer brains urging us to eat more in order to survive. But as we can see in our current societies of overabundance, this has the potential to lead towards addictions and serious health issues. The same can be observed with regards to more potent drugs such as nicotine and cocaine. The initial consumption increases dopamine, followed by a dopamine deficit, followed by an urge to use again to numb the pain. This describes how addictions are formed. The initial consumption of a drug or behaviour increases dopamine levels significantly due to its novelty and dopamine release. However, as consumption continues, the dopamine increase lessens, leading towards the consumption of the drug being used not for feeling good, but for numbing the pain felt following consumption. To put this into perspective with regards to cold water immersion, ice baths have the potential to increase dopamine levels more so than cocaine. However, the drop-off does not occur until an hour after the initial immersion. But more importantly is that it does not drop off suddenly and sharply like that with cocaine, meaning we hold on to that pleasure for longer, making cold water immersion a much healthier way to boost dopamine levels, increase motivation, and improve productivity. So, what's the lesson here? Instead of increasing dopamine levels instantly or artificially through pleasure, which inevitably leads to pain, we should embrace the opposite and find ways to increase dopamine levels through effort or pain. Not literal pain, but things that are difficult. but that will be pleasurable afterwards. So tip the balance towards pain, and it will reward you by tipping back towards pleasure. So what could you do today that would tip the balance in a healthy and productive way? Is it an ice bath? Is it exercising? Is it writing? Is it meditation? Something effortful but pleasurable post-effort. The answer, as always, lies in the struggle. So keep on struggling. Just a few more things before you take off. Firstly, thank you for watching. It genuinely means a lot to see people viewing and liking the content. Second, if you're enjoying the content, please subscribe and share. Those are the best ways you can support the podcast. As you can probably tell, I don't have a ton of fancy equipment. I don't have a team behind me helping with marketing or editing the podcast. I don't have much resources. So any help is greatly appreciated. You can also stay up to date with everything I'm doing on social media. All of the links will be in the show notes. And you can also listen to the Struggle podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And lastly, keep on struggling.